Happy Sunday, everybody. If you are new here to the channel, first of all, what took you so long? Just kidding, just kidding. Welcome. My name is Jules and I recently purchased this Rembrandt watercolour dot card with all of their watercolours from their artist grade brand. It is the artist grade watercolours from Royal Talents, which is the Dutch company, famous for Van Gogh watercolours, which are high quality student grade, and also some excellent sketchbooks and other stuff. In my last video, I swatched out the first 40 of the 120 colours that I have, from yellow through to pink, and today I'm going to swatch out with you the purples and blues and greens, and I am filming this literally the day after I filmed the last video and my voice is still kind of dying, but I literally cannot wait because this is such a treat for me. So I am so excited. If you're not familiar with the idea of a dot card, it is basically a little sample of each of their watercolor paints like they would come out of the tube, and they just dry on this sheet, and then you can activate them with a little bit of water. You can see that I have added a tiny bit of water onto all of these already, just to help us along, and then you can try them out on some paper, your favorite paper or whatever, just so you can actually see what they feel like to use for yourself. So it's a great way to try out a lot of different colors for a very reasonable price. Additionally, if you are interested in buying any of these or anything else that you've been inspired to based on the videos that I have on my channel, I'm happy to share this wonderful world of colourful art supplies. There is a link in the description box below to Jackson's Art Supplies in the UK. They're quite famous here on YouTube. They ship very reasonably to just about every country in the world and have an incredible range. And as of filming this video, the Rembrandt watercolors are actually on sale, though maybe by the time this comes out that won't not be the case, but either way they're very reasonably priced. That link will be an affiliate link. I do not monetize this channel because of reasons, but if you would like to passively financially support me in buying more art supplies to share with you, then that link will give me a 5% commission on anything you buy. I'm not being paid to say this, it's just Jackson's Art Supplies is a great place to buy stuff, and yeah, and if you're a new customer, you'll also get 10% off your order. So it's really a win-win for me and for you. You don't pay any extra, I just get a little pocket money. Anyway, that spiel out of the way, let's get on with the swatching. I suggest you grab a cup of coffee because the last time I did this video, it took forever. So we might be here some time, but you already know that because you can see the timestamp on the video. So the last color that I swatched was this quinacridone rose reddish. You can see here, I'm using my Da Vinci, what's it called? Da Vinci Cosmotop Spin number 6. It's just a synthetic brush, but it's quite good, quite stiff, so it's quite good for getting the colours off the dot card. And this colour is quinacridone rose magenta. I can just tell my water is going to go a lovely colour today. But let's get swatching. Let's see what this looks like. I decided to not put like black lines for opacity on here because I feel like they don't always accurately represent what the opacity is functionally when you're using the watercolour. But this colour is Pigment Red 122, PR 122, and it is a traditional quinacridone magenta colour, and it is very transparent, I can tell you that much. But it is a quinacridone colour, you'd be a little bit concerned if it wasn't. The first few were always a little bit clumsy because you're getting used to the swatching process again. This is just Clairefontaine Gold Line, Aqua something, it's cellulose paper, student grade, so nothing fancy, but it certainly is doing the job here. And this color is really like a classic quinacridone magenta, like really nice blue leaning red would probably mix really fantastic purples and, you know, maybe some nice oranges too. And up next we have basically the result of mixing this colour with white. It's called Rose, number 357, and they say this is semi-opaque. They don't claim that many of their colours are semi-opaque, and I think that is because, as I discussed in the previous video, they have this transparent version of titanium white that they use sometimes to make their pastel colours, but this is obviously made using the opaque version, which is why they would say that it's opaque. It's PR 122 and PW6, which is the titanium white. And it's a lovely colour. If I can imagine some people really loving this, like if you're into painting like nice whimsical florals, or you just want like a little bit of a punch. It's a very, very bright pink, but it is nice. It's considerably softer than this colour and a little bit more muted as well, I guess because of the impact of that titanium white. So what do we have next? I think we're in the realm of PV19 right now, which is this quinacridone violet colour, and they call this colour, this particular version of it, there's lots of different versions of this pigment, they call it permanent red violet. It's also transparent, and it's a lovely quinacridone red violet kind of colour. I must admit, this section of the colour spectrum, the sort of pinks and purples, not really my wheelhouse. Like, I like them, but I don't really use them that much right now anyway. So I don't have all too much to say, but I can say that these are all really bright, light fast, fantastic colours, very smooth, and the paints reactivate brilliantly. I've been so impressed with this paint from Rembrandt, how well the colours reactivate. I've not had any issues, though there are a couple of colours that are hard to wet in any brand, but so far I haven't run into any. And then up next we have another quinacridone. So this is really starting out with the series for the quinacridone fans. This is quinacridone red violet, PR202, which is a colour that's also sometimes used for quinacridone magenta. And it looks incredibly similar. These four colours are incredibly similar. I suppose that if you're somebody who uses this kind of colour a lot, then you likely have some specific qualities that you look for in it. And maybe some of these are a little more red leaning, a little more blue leaning, a little more staining or high tinting, a little less staining or tinting. So I wouldn't know about that, but we can have a look when they are dried. I'll come back and give you a summary at the very end, and we can have a look at what the actual differences are between them. I've just put the colour numbers on here, so this is number 365, because I didn't want to clutter this sheet where I've got to put a lot of colours on there with too much information. But if you look up on their website, this colour number, I'm sure that they will have all of the information there for you. And up next is a colour that I am very excited about. It's called Benzimidazoline Violet, and it's been on my list for a long time, and it's this sort of burgundy magenta. And I know I said I'm not a quinacridone person, but I really like the red leaning tone of this in the mass tone. And it's so pigmented, you guys. Oh my goodness. It's so it's so strong. Oh wow. And then when you wash it out, it goes like cooler toned. Interesting. So it's like a really like maroon burgundy tone in the mass tone, and then when you wash it out, you can really see that violet. Okay. They have my attention with this one. That might be on my list. It's a really, really stunning colour. I think this would be great for anybody. So I think that this is it for the majority of the magenta sort of leaning colours. And now we can move into the... hitting my camera. We can move into the true violets. Starting with this colour they've called Mauve, which is a mixture of PV19, which is quinacridone violet, and PB15, which is phthalo blue. I'm sorry about my voice. I don't know what's wrong with it. The show must go on. And this is a really nice colour. I like this. Oh, wow. Yeah, I like that a lot. It's not too vibrant. It's like a really nice deep purple. And not the band either. Wow. Okay. I'll have to try these mixes at home. I think they maybe mixed it with the phthalo blue green shade, which is why it's like not so super, super vibrant. 532. All right. That's a nice surprise. All right, and then to follow that, we have actual quinacridone purple, single pigment PV55, quinacridone purple bluish, they call it. Very light fast. All the quinacridone colours very light fast. So all of these so far have been the maximum light fast rating that they'll give, and I think that would be accurate across most brands. The quinacridone colours are really modern miracles of light fastness in bright pink, red, purple colours, which otherwise can be quite fugitive. But this is nice too. I still prefer the one next to it, but this is way more saturated and a little more red leaning. So if that's what you're looking for and you prefer a single pigment, which I know I do sometimes, then this one might be for you. And then the last one on this row of the dot charts, I'm going to have to add some more water, is Manganese Violet PV16. This is maybe a granulating color, and it's probably, like most manganese violets, a nice warm middle purple, and it has reactivated really well on the dot card, which is worth noting because that's not always a given with some of these colors which are granulating. Sometimes they dry quite hard because the particle size is bigger, so you need a lot of binder to hold them together. But this one is really nice shade. I can compare it with my Roman Schmoll one. Roman Schmoll is sort of my go-to brand for trying new colors right now, and I think theirs is a little bit more red leaning. This is really nice. Okay, so the next set of colors is moving into the purple, the blue violets and the blues, which is why I was so excited to do this video today, because those are some of my favorite colors. And we're starting with the color they call blue violet, which is what Daniel Smith would describe as carbazole violet, and the other name is escaping me right now, dioxazine violet, PV23, that's the one. In a lot of brands, I think Schminker call it Schminker violet. It's one of those colors which comes under a lot of names, but if you have a purple and a starter set of watercolors, it's likely to be this one, and for good reason. It's a really nice, transparent, very blue-leaning purple, but it's one of those purples that you can use and you can sort of lean it more red if you want to, and it mixes really well. It's also great for neutralizing greens. Really nice version. Very highly pigmented, but not like intimidatingly so. Some brands really like when you put this on the paper, it comes out really black. We'll see if there's any drying shift, because sometimes that can be an issue with this pigment. But up next we have a couple of colours which may be a little harder to reactivate. So I have Ultramarine Violet, PV15. And Ultramarine Violet is actually the same chemical as Ultramarine Blue, but I think you just like cook it longer or something. I mean, I've never made it, but I remember seeing something one time about that there were just different stages of the process. And as you can see, this is like a lot less tinting than the dioxazine violet, the blue violet, but really nice, gentle color. And I think that I really like this hue a lot. If you're looking for something more delicate, like in skies, I think this color is really nice because it isn't overpowering and unnatural looking. And also maybe in landscapes, like to make some more neutral, sort of interesting granulating grays, because I think it also granulates. So I don't know if we'll see that in this particular swatch. I'll add a little bit of water so we can see. And up next we have Cobalt Violet. Now this is a color that I know is a favorite of Irit Landgraf here on YouTube. I think she really swears by Cobalt Violet. She really loves her sort of cool blue-leaning pinks, and Cobalt Violet is one of her go-tos. This is quite a small dot on the dot card. Let me just show you. So you can see here, it is a color that is famously kind of hard to re-wet, but this is actually not too bad going for it. Ooh. Just whacked my coffee mug with the dot card. And let's see what it looks like on the paper. But I was a little interested about this because I don't, it's not really my kind of color per se. I mean, never say never, but I know that they are quite hard to re-wet, but this one is actually quite a pleasant surprise. I think that is quite a good pigmentation. It's always going to be low tinting, and that doesn't mean that the paint is particularly bad quality or the pigment is bad quality. It's just the nature of the pigment. I see a lot of people being very disappointed with colors like this, especially because they're kind of on the expensive side, and then you buy them and you think, oh, is that all? But that's just the nature of the pigment. It's a delicate, granulating pink violet, and that's just how we have to meet it where it is. Alright, so up next we have another semi-opaque pastel colour, which is Lavender, which is Ultramarine Blue, PB29, Ultramarine Violet, PV15, and Titanium White, PW6. And they've supposedly used the opaque version because this colour is semi-opaque. I would be interested to see a version of this colour made with their transparent. titanium dioxide, because those colours, those pastel colours in the previous sheet I really enjoyed. But I guess we'll see if this granulates. Did they say it does? They say it doesn't. But it's a nice colour. A lot of people really, really like this colour. It's one of my favourite shades for sure. And I have this colour in Rembrandt, and I also really like it. I think I also have a tube from Van Gogh. I know I'm saying that name wrong. Don't come for me. I can't. My partner is Dutch, and I do understand a lot of Dutch, but I can't pronounce any of it. So I've given up. Anyway, 506. Ultramarine Deep. So I expect this will be a traditional ultramarine blue. Ultramarine is one of my favorite colors of all time, just to look at. Like I could just paint out a swatch of ultramarine blue and just stare at it for half an hour because it's such a stunning color. I know it's a little bit basic because, you know, everyone knows it, everyone's had it in palettes, and I think that brands usually have a couple versions because there's usually one which is more green leaning and usually less granulating, and then a French ultramarine version which is more red leaning and more granulating. Though they do say that both of these forms of ultramarine they have this one and the French one next door. They say that both of them are granulating. Let me just see if I can get any more in here. Really nice, easy to re-wet. Standard ultramarine, absolutely stunning. I'm just always bowled over by this colour. There's something about my little human brain that cannot comprehend that something like this colour can exist in the world. And then up next, we will see what the differences are. So the French ultramarine is so far also very easy to re-wet, which is nice. And a little more red leaning. You can maybe see that there's like a little bit more of a violet tone to this one. And I'll try and add also some water to this one so we can see if it will granulate. I do like granulating colours. I think that they have like a place, you know, sometimes you don't want, the separation can be a little bit distracting maybe, but I think in a lot of very nice loose artworks, the granulation can just be so nice, can't it? It just adds so much interest without having to do anything technical. Yeah, I can definitely see this one is granulating. This one is also granulating, this one more so, I think, though the proof will be when it is dried. And now we have 512, which is cobalt blue brackets ultramarine, which is ultramarine blue PB29 and phthalo blue PB15 and PW6. It is semi-transparent, so maybe they used their other titanium white for this one, maybe. And it certainly looks like a cobalt blue tone, to be honest. Like this is a very convincing cobalt blue hue, and if it granulates, then even more so, though they don't say it does. I think maybe when you mix the colours with white, they don't, they're not quite as granulating, but it's a very nice colour. A little bit less toxic than cobalt pigments. Cobalt pigments are heavy metal, and if you have children or pets that might get into your art supplies, then maybe you want to avoid it. And I mean, we'll see the cobalt blue next, the genuine cobalt blue, but I think this is a lovely paint. Sometimes you can get cobalt blue hues that are a little bit chalky. I mean, this is a great colour. I think that can't go wrong with that one either, if you're looking for a cheaper alternative as well. And then, as I was saying, we have cobalt blue. PB28, the classical cobalt blue pigment. Looking at it on the dot card, it does seem a little greener than the cobalt blue hue that they put together. And it's supposedly granulating and semi-transparent, so a little bit more on the opaque side, as a lot of cobalt colours are. This cobalt violet has dried really nicely. I kind of see the appeal. I do see it. I do find that cobalt blue quite often has a finer granulation than ultramarine, like a smaller particle size, which may be what you're looking for. This is a beautiful sky blue colour. That would be an excellent sky blue. It's on the green side of a lot of cobalt blues that I've seen, though we'll see what it looks like when it's dried. And then we have phthalo blue reddish PB15. There's a lot of different versions of phthalo blue, and this one looks so intense. I'm a little afraid. Look at how dark that is. That's just wow. Okay. Yeah, I don't use phthalo blue very much because I'm a little afraid of it. Yeah, I mean it's great value because a tube will last you forever because it's so high tinting. You add like one dab of phthalo blue to something and it's going to be blue forever. Also, don't get it on your hands because that stuff never comes off. I mean, it does. I'm being dramatic, but it certainly is annoying to have blue fingers. It's happened to me more than once. Let's see if I add like a little bit more at the top. Maybe we can get it into like a really deep mass tone. It's very, very easy to re-wet, very velvety paint. Really nice. I do tend to prefer the redder leaning shades of phthalo blue. With blues, it's a bit weird. I love the colour blue. Love, love, love. But I tend to prefer either the ones which lean really violet or the ones which lean really green. Look at this. Colour of my water, by the way. Wow. That's stunning. It looks like ultraviolet. So for comparison, we have their phthalo blue greenish, which is PB15. They've just called it PB15, but I think it's usually PB15, and then the denominator is the colon 3 for green shade. And you can see this is also really deep, but significantly more turquoisey than its neighbour. Let me just get some of this off my brush so I can actually wash it out. Yeah, this is perfect, like tropical ocean blue, like a super cool blue. Really, really nice. Hard for these colours to come across accurately on camera, but we'll see when it's dried. I'll try and show you in a normal daylight. I do have my light on right now because it's a little bit dark in here. It's the morning in January, so the sun doesn't come around. It doesn't come around to my window for some time, but I'll do my best to show you later. And up next we have Prussian blue, which is a recent favourite of mine. A lot of people have issues with the light fastness of this colour. I choose to overlook that, or not overlook that, but I choose to love it anyway because I think it is just such a nice colour. It reminds me a little bit of phthalo blue in a lot of its properties. Like, look how deep and intense it is in the mass tone. But it's a little on the green side, very sort of denim blue, but it's a little less high tinting and a little less terrifying, a little less terrifyingly saturated, which I like. So we'll see what it looks like when it dries as well, because I think sometimes they have a bit of a drying shift. But this so far, I think that I was very disappointed when I tried the Schminke Prussian blue. It's like, it was very hard to re-wet, whereas this one is not at all. Like, really, really nice to use, this paint, which pleases me. It's also a very cheap pigment, so it's like a, yeah, price grade 1 pigment, so great option for a first blue if you just want to try it out. And then we have Indanthrene blue, PB60. I have a few versions of this pigment. My favourite is the Schminke Delft blue, and I can tell you on this already that this one is significantly grayer. Like, it's almost more like an indigo than an Indanthrene blue, but supposedly is only one pigment. But I've never seen an Indanthrene blue that is so, there you go, now you can see, that is so grey, like so unsaturated to begin with. Like, I know sometimes it can have a drying shift, but to be so grey when it's wet, I mean, maybe it's just like, maybe it's just a good indigo replacement because it's very dark in the mass tone. We'll see what it looks like when it dries, but that's a surprise to me. I was expecting it to be way more saturated than that. It's a transparent colour, so probably mixes really nice colours, really good for use in the shadows. This one especially, since it's so neutral. That's a surprise, and I'm not sure how I feel about it yet, and we will see what I think when it dries, because I'm so used to it in Indanthrene blue being like this sort of more rich, royal, deep blue, but who's to say? So we're moving into the cobalt blue zone now. This was original cobalt blue, but first of all we have their actual indigo, which is a mixture of phthalo blue PB15, they don't say which one, and PBK6. Supposedly it's semi-transparent and it's very intense, very easy to re-wet on the dot card. Oh, wow. What? Oh my goodness. Okay. Wow. Oh, that is stunning. I'm really in love with these deep inky blues right now. Like it's one of my favorite colors. That is magical. It looks very similar to the Indian Throne blue, which seems to be drying more blue than it went on. I'm very confused with that one. What an emotional roller coaster. But this is a really nice. I think they used the green shade of phthalo blue. It certainly leans a little green. But that's amazing. What a lovely indigo. I've been looking for an indigo that I like for some time. It's a color I'm very picky about blues. You might be able to tell, but that's really impressed me. But like I said, moving into the cobalt blues, we have a few pigments. So we have cerulean blue greenish PB36, which is one of the traditional cerulean blue pigments. Let's see, I think this is supposed to be granulating. It is. So these pigments are a little on the pricey side, but often worth it for the effects that they have. This is quite transparent, which is nice. Nothing, no evidence of any sort of fillers or binders or, well, I mean, binder is obviously there, but not like to an extent which you wouldn't expect from an artist brand. And this is lovely. Let's see if we can make it a little more intense at the top, but it's a very nice, intense greenish blue. I tend to prefer the more reddish cerulean blue shades, which is exactly what is on the dot card next to it. So they look very similar, and actually this is a PB35 rather than PB36, so it's sort of sibling. And this pigment can be a little hard to re-wet sometimes, but this one re-wet absolutely beautifully. So far the Rembrandt formula has been really impressing me in terms of how easy to re-wet the paints are for the pigments, which I know are usually a little tough. Let's just see if I can build it up a little bit more in the mass tone like I did with the other one. Nice. It's a little on the muted side. You can't really tell on camera, but we'll see what it looks like when it's dried, because you never can tell with watercolors. And now we have a hue, so they call it cerulean blue brackets phthalo, which is nice because it makes it very clear that this is not meant to be genuine cerulean blue, and it certainly is not. This looks just like, I mean, it's phthalo blue mixed with white. It's semi-transparent, so that transparent titanium white again. But this is really nice. Really nice colour. I just I don't think it's like as good of a replacement as the cobalt blue hue earlier was. I think this is maybe a little too on the saturated side, but I get that it's not easy to make a good cerulean blue hue, so it's nice to have an option for those people who don't want to use cobalt pigments. All right, and then finally for this row, we have cobalt turquoise blue, which is PB28 again, that same cobalt blue pigment. I have this pigment from Roman Schmoll. It's called Cobalt Sea Blue, and it's in sort of contrast to the other pigment that's sometimes used for this cobalt teal, cobalt turquoise color that's PG50. But this looks like a very nice green leaning cobalt turquoise kind of color. What do they call it? Cobalt turquoise blue, yeah. Very nice. Very transparent, which is nice. Sometimes these pigments can be a little heavy feeling, and this doesn't feel heavy at all, but still a beautiful saturated color, a little greener than it looks on camera. Turquoises just never appear right on camera, and honestly this is very pigmented. They didn't have a huge dot of this on the card, so I was concerned that I wasn't going to have enough, but I have not had that issue with any of the paints on this dot card yet. They're all like really nicely pigmented, and all of them have, yeah, been a joy to work with, and I still have so much left even after doing these little swatches, so plenty of space for me to try them out in some mixes and decide if I want to buy myself a little palette of these. Right, so up next, 522 turquoise blue, which is a mixture of PB15 and PG7, so that's phthalo blue phthalo green. They don't have on this dot card, at least, a PB16, which is a single pigment phthalo turquoise, but they do have two different versions of mixtures of PB15 and PG7. And one of my favourite colours from Rembrandt is their transparent turquoise, which is a very green leaning mixture of phthalo blue and phthalo green. And this looks like a very nice blue leaning version. I mean, it's still very turquoise, right? I mean, but I can see this being a replacement for a PB16 if you really are a PB16 fan, which I know there are some of those people on YouTube. Me too. I do own multiple versions of that pigment. Super transparent, super vibrant, great choice, couldn't go wrong with it. And then we have 550 Cerulean Blue Deep, which is PB36 again, which I believe is exactly the same colour as the pigment that's directly above it on this sheet, but a little deeper and more muted, perhaps a little green leaning. So you can see the difference here somewhat immediately, but it really just depends on your use case. I think if you're painting seascapes, then this one is a wonderful one, especially for times when, like winter, you know, when the ocean isn't quite so much this color, it's kind of more this color, and it's got some lovely texture if it's, yeah, it's granulating. Very nice pigment indeed. I like that they have so many options for all these different sort of tones of cobalt blue. Because it is an expensive pigment, you do want to make sure that you get the one that you like and would use the most, and I think this is a really nice one actually. I haven't used one really like this before, I don't think. I've got there's one next to it right here which is called Cobalt Turquoise Green, 682, this one where I'm going to put it, which is PG26, which I have as Cobalt Green Deep from Roman Schmall, but the one that I have is a very different colour. That's the thing with these cobalt colours, the pigment numbers don't necessarily mean all that much either, because the way that the pigment is processed makes such a difference to how the paints react. So this one was like a little tougher to re-wet, but no problem whatsoever. And you can see it is like a very, very green leaning, but it's not super deep. The one that I have is like a foresty green, and this is like still an aquamarine, sea green kind of vibe. It's actually very unique. I haven't seen a cobalt green like this before. I'm going to try and get a little bit more of it off the dot. I probably should have put some more water on that one. It's kind of hard to predict which dots are going to need more water and which ones won't. But that's nice. I will see how it dries, but like that is, wow. Very interesting. I'll be interested to compare that to the Viridian, which is coming up in a little bit. Put loads of water on that one because Viridian is notoriously hard to re-wet. And this is a second mixture of phthalo green and phthalo blue, this time green leaning. They call it bluish green. And frankly, if you told me this was just phthalo green, I probably would not argue with you. Like, I'm not really seeing much of the blue coming through in here. I think that this version of the turquoise blue was maybe a little bit more convincing, but this is a nice color. It's honestly a little hard to re-wet. Nothing dramatic, but like phthalo colors are not usually hard to re-wet, and none of their other phthalo colors were, so I don't know why this one is suddenly putting up a fight. But yeah, not very deep. Looks very deep on the dot card, very transparent. I mean, maybe it's nice to have a lower tinting kind of phthalo green color that's non-granulating. And we'll see how it looks when it dries as well, of course, as I keep saying. And then up next, I said that I was interested to try their Viridian. Viridian is a pigment which everyone knows is a little hard to re-wet, PG18, but this one is so good, you guys. Look at this. Look at this. I did put extra water on it and left it like to the end of the row, but that is a lot of pigment to get off of a Viridian. That's very exciting to me. I know that sounds a little lame, but genuinely, like, that's really nice. And it's a little yellower leaning than some of the other Viridians I've tried. Very transparent, very low tinting always, but the fact that you're able to get so much pigment off it so easily is very appealing to me. Currently I use a version from Schminker called Chrome Oxide Green Fiery, I believe, or something intense. That is a mixture of Viridian and Phthalo Green, so it's like got a little bit of the granulation that comes with Viridian. But this is, wow. I am so pleasantly surprised by this. What a lovely colour. Okay, let's see how it dries. It's like sometimes, because you need a lot of binder to work with Viridian, sometimes it can be a little streaky, but this doesn't look like it looks like it's evening itself out in the water really well. What a lovely, oh my goodness, look at these. Oh my goodness. I was so excited to do this video and I feel so justified right now. Okay, anyway, the last two on this row, so we have the Phthalo Green blue shade, I guess, the PG7 just by itself, and this one is again super intense by the looks of it. Yeah, look. Maybe a little more yellow leaning than other Phthalo Green blue shades that I've used. Some of the ways that their colors lean is like whenever you try a different brand, right? There's always like this comparison with the colors you already have and what you already know. And this one is just, it looks a little bluer on camera, but in real life it's like a lot more yellowish than the Phthalo Greens that I have right now, which are way more of sort of this more blue leaning green. This is a color I probably would not purchase, but is very intense and very beautiful, and would probably mix really, really nice darks. Like phthalo colors, because they're so transparent and intense, they often mix really, really nice deep colors with their complement. So if you mix this with like a vermilion or something, you probably get a really, really nice sort of deep black. And then 615 is Emerald Green, which is PG 36. So it's a phthalo green yellow shade, but then the very next colour they have on the sheet is also called phthalo green yellow. So let's see. This one looks a little bit creamy on the dot card. I don't know what to make of that, but this is like a... this is another colour which I don't know if I would choose to buy. Maybe I should just open my mind to the possibilities though. It's oddly nice to have this like very bright, I don't know, it reminds me of like this pencil I have from Faber-Castell. It's like cobalt green, I think, or something, and it's a bit like this. Like it's a very light tone. It doesn't get super deep in the mass tone, whereas the next one on the sheet looks like it will, like this one. This one is a lot lighter. Very interesting to me. Very unique. Again, like I haven't seen a phthalo green that's like this before. That's a different version of a phthalo green pigment to me. And then our final 8 colours. Thank you for sticking with me so far in this video. If you are enjoying it, please do consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, because I do have another 40 colours to go from this sheet, and they are going to be the earth tones and specialty colours. So yeah, I'll figure out a way to show those best, because I think some of them are metallic, so might need to figure out a different swatching system. But this is their phthalo green yellow. So again, PG 36. And the same in every other aspect, the pigment number, the transparency, except, as you can see, this one feels way more intense, way more transparent in like a very specific way that I can't really describe, but you might know if you've already used watercolors quite a bit, which is probably why you've made it this far in the video. This is a very bright green. I don't know how I feel about it, but my brain is coming around to these sort of lime greens lately. I mixed my own paints up from the tube paints that I own, and one of them I made was this really bright sort of chartreuse green. Never would have seen that coming for myself, but these two colours are weirdly speaking to me. In fact, all of these are. Oh, if only I could own all of the paints, right? Like if they sent me like the whole range, oof, I would love that. 662 then, PG7 PY154. So this is a mixture of phthalo green and a benzimidazoline yellow, and it is called Permanent Green, and it's what I would describe as a grass green, like on the yellow side. So you can see But I actually quite like mixes with benzimidazole yellow because it's a middle yellow, but maybe a little on the warm side, so you get slightly more natural looking greens with it. And this is certainly one of them. Like compared to this one next to it, this one looks more like an actual colour of a plant. But I don't know. Like I don't use a lot of these kind of colours, so maybe I'm not the target market, but it's a very nice paint. Paints out very smoothly, re-wets very nicely. Nice option to have. And then the last one on this row is another yellow green. And it's the other way around. So it's PY154 and PG7. So more yellow, less green, very transparent, permanent yellowish green. So that one was permanent green and this one is permanent yellowish green. And this one is heading more towards colours that I'm interested in right now. If that last one was grass green, then I might describe this one as apple green. And I think that this is really nice. This is tickling my neurons in the right way. Maybe just a little more yellow and I would be interested in this one. That's very nice, very transparent, would make a lovely sort of maybe underpainting if you just wanted like a really bright tone coming through. Not a massive tonal range because it's kind of light to begin with, but very nice. Very nice colour. Yeah, I like that one. Nothing really more to say. You have to let me know what you go for in terms of, for a long time I didn't buy green paints. I was very like, oh, I always mix my own greens. And then I realised that it's nice to have a convenience green. I don't know what your stance is on that, which colours, which sort of tone of green you tend to go for if you're buying yourself a convenience green. That'd be a good conversation to have in the comments down below. And then we have a sap green. So this is where it gets interesting because they have these three colours in a row and they're all the same two pigments. They are all PY150 and PG7, so Nicolazo yellow and phthalo green, except in different ratios. So you can choose for your convenience green which one would you like to have. And this is sap green, so this is the yellowest of them all, more yellow than green, and I think that's really nice actually. We'll have to see how it dries, but that's a really nice sort of natural-ish but still very bright green that you could easily mute down with a little bit of a red oxide or something. And then up next we have what they call Hooker's Green Light, which is PG7 and PY150, so more green than yellow. And you can see that this one is a more of a middle green, less yellow leaning, and very nice again. Like, no, the quality is just great on these paints. I'll say it over and over again because I think that, like, even if it's a colour that I don't really like, I think it's important to emphasize that there's nothing wrong with the paint whatsoever. Like, it's, yeah, these paints are definitely not going to get in your way. If you, whatever you want to paint, I think that you are going to be happy with these paints. That's a nice colour. It's very, very like the woods in summer kind of green to me for some reason. And then there's another one, Hooker's Green Deep, which is PG7 and PY150 again, but a lot more of the phthalo green, and maybe they use the phthalo green blue shade or something, because this is, as you can see, I have to get you in the middle of the light, that's the technique. It's a lot more bluish and deeper than the ones next to it. But these three colours all have the same pigments, so they're all in the same family. You could make them all, I think, probably just by adding a little bit more of those. If you had the phthalo green and then the phthalo, and the Nicolazo yellow, then you could mix them all. But, like I said, sometimes you don't really use either of those pigments by themselves, and if not, maybe you want the convenience. I think that that's perfectly valid. We'll see how they dry anyway. So far I like these two more than this one, but I have been wrong before. Currently I'm right on schedule. I was worried I was going to take too long with this video, but it looks like I'm taking this exactly the same amount of time as the other ones, so my scheduling was good. And then up next we have the final two colours, which are both sort of more muted greens, let's say. This one is Chromium Oxide Green, PG17. This is a standard pigment, and it's very opaque. They say semi-transparent, but like, come on. This is at least semi-opaque, this colour. Very nice. Nothing wrong with it being opaque, but I just think it's a bit of a misrepresentation. Very nice natural green, mossy green. Very good for painting natural things, or just if you prefer the more muted greens. It's a little more blue leaning than the camera is making it look right now, but like I said, we'll come back when they're dried and you can see the final tones. Very nice paint, very creamy, very nice to use. I keep meaning to do a video like mixing with this colour because I have it from Roman Schmoll, and I think that a lot of the small brands of watercolours I've seen have some really interesting paints which are mixtures of using this pigment and another pigment or two to make really, really interesting tones, because it's a granulating pigment. They don't say it's granulating actually, but the one that I have from Roman Schmoll is certainly granulating, and we'll see if this one does do any of that. And then finally, potentially finishing on a low, because the last colour here is Green Earth, and if you know Green Earth, this is PG23, the genuine Green Earth, you know that it's really hard to re-wet, but again, I'll show you on the dot card. This Green Earth seems to have reactivated very well. I did put extra water on it, and it is the last one, so it was sitting there a while, but you can see absolutely no problem getting pigment off of here. Green Earth is always, always, always a very, very low tinting transparent pigment. I think people use it for cool tones in portraits or underpaintings. Those are sort of techniques that I am not very familiar with because I'm not a fine artist by nature. But this is a very nice, nice enough version of this colour. I mean, if you love this colour, then you love this colour. And I know there are some people who collect Green Earths. They really, really love these very, very soft, gentle tones. And I think that there is a lot of value to be found there. I love a sage green. I mixed my own sage green, but I think that I prefer them to be a little bit more highly tinting, let's say. But this is nice. This is a nice earth green. Let's see if it dries nice and smooth, because that can be an issue with these lower tinting paints. Sometimes, like with the Viridian, you have a high concentration of binder and then they dry a little bit iffy. But so far so good. This, I think I have faith that it will be absolutely fine. Look at this range of colours. That is just amazing. This gradient from pink to green. Oh, Rembrandt has really such a nice selection of colours. Like one of the nicest selections that I've seen. I have a lot of these dot cards from different brands, and this is an excellent selection of paints. I'm going to let these dry, and then I'll be back to show you them all together at the end. Okay, so we're back. The paint has dried, at least for the most part. I think there's maybe just a little bit damp still here in the corner, but we can start from the top. These quinacridone magenta colours are all really, really lovely. I think literally any of them would be great. This benzimidazzolone violet, I think I definitely need in my life because it's so nice. Just for comparison, this is how these quinacridone magentas compare to the last batch. Oh, hang on. Natural light, am I right? So this is how this batch of quinacridone magentas compares to the last one. See, the reason I have the lamp on is because my arm makes shadows on the paper from this angle. But they're really nice, really, really classic quinacridone magenta colours, really nice quality, very bright, very transparent. And then moving into the violet tones, you can see this manganese violet is really, really granulating, very nice. Not too much of a shift on the dioxazine violet, just the normal amount. Yeah, I don't know if it's my favourite version of the pigment, but it's perfectly nice to use. This ultramarine violet has like a very subtle granulation to it. I didn't have a massive dot of it, so I would take that with a pinch of salt, if you will, because it's kind of hard to get a good representation. The cobalt violet, really nice surprise, really like this colour, but I won't buy it because I don't think I would use it. The lavender is definitely on the blue side of lavender rather than the violet side. I mean, everyone's version from different brands varies. The ultramarines, both very nice. I think they're quite similar, to be honest. The ultramarine blue deep is a little bit more intense and greenish, and the French ultramarine is a little more delicate and maybe potentially a little more granulating, though they both are granulating. And I think that the ultramarine blue deep is cheaper, like by a whole tier, so maybe that's a good option for you if you just want a basic ultramarine. These are the cobalt blue hue and the cobalt blue, and you can see what I mean by the fact that this is a very good cobalt blue hue. It's not very chalky, not very opaque, and I think it's just a little bit warmer than the actual genuine cobalt blue. The cobalt blue is more granulating as well a little bit, but both very nice colours, just this one is a lot cheaper. And then I need to refer back to my dot card again to remind myself. I think we're into the phthalo blues here. So this is phthalo blue reddish, phthalo blue greenish, which looks even greener in person, and they're Prussian blue and they're indanthrone blue. So you can see the range of sort of deeper, more intense blues here. Still so surprised by the lack of saturation in this indanthrone blue. Lovely Prussian blue. Really like that color, and the phthalo blue greenish is actually a very nice version of this color. All of these are lovely. I think you could pick one and be very happy with your decision, though this one would probably mix not very good greens because it's so grayish. But I think that you could choose basically between this one and this one if you wanted like a deep blue indigo color, whether you prefer a warmer tone or a cooler tone, because this indigo is just basically a very similar tone to this one, but obviously with the black pigment it's a little more on the grey side, a little duller, and a little more on the green side as well. But both really nice. I would even consider picking this up just as like an indigo. It's a nice tone. And then we're into the cobalt blues. These are all different versions of cobalt blue. I think this is the cobalt blue hue, right? Yeah, this is the cobalt blue phthalo, which looks in colour quite similar to the others, but in texture it's a little bit different, a little bit more opaque. But this is the cerulean blue greenish and the cerulean blue, and the cerulean blue, yeah, the PB35 version in the middle there, 534, is way more granulating than the other one. So if that's a factor for you, then there's that information. This cobalt turquoise, cobalt teal colour, really nice. Very versatile, nice paint. Couldn't recommend it more. Just a very nice standard cobalt turquoise. Moving into the other turquoise blues, we have this turquoise blue and the bluish green, which were mixtures of the phthalo blue and phthalo green together. Personally, I prefer this turquoise blue, and in between we have a couple of versions of a sort of a cobalt turquoise deep kind of color. This is the cerulean blue deep, which is the PB36 again, like this one, just a different processing, more granulating, more greenish, slightly deeper. And this very interesting cobalt turquoise green, which is a very delicate sort of sea green, almost like a, so this is the Viridian, right? Which I mentioned before was very easy to re-wet for a Viridian. And these two almost feel like very similar pigments to me, just this one is more blue and this one is more yellow. So I don't know, these are very interesting colours. I don't know, maybe I would pick one of them up to try. And then moving into the greens. What an interesting range from the phthalo green here, which is the traditional phthalo green, yes. So it's like super intense, really nice basic green, if that's what you're looking for. And then these two versions of phthalo green yellow shade, which this version here, the lighter colour, is very intriguing to me. I've not met a colour like that before, and it certainly has piqued my interest, which maybe is a surprise because I'm not usually one for these kind of colours, but this one is, for some reason, it's got my attention. Emerald green, it's called. And then we have this sort of grass green and apple green, which are the mixtures of benzimidazolone yellow, PY154 and PG7 phthalo green. And I prefer the more yellow version. The grass green is a really nice, solid, like true green. So if that's what you're looking for, then that would be the colour. And then we have our mixtures with Nickel Azo Yellow PY150. So we have the Sap Green, Hooker's Green Light, Hooker's Green Deep. I think that you could easily get just one of these colours and then mix the other ones. Maybe I would even go for the middle one. It's a little bit yellower than it's showing on camera right now. This is a really nice colour though. I like all three of these actually, but I think that these two are more my speed. All really nice quality paints, really no issues. In fact, pleasantly surprised, even with the colours which are traditionally harder to re-wet. So that's something to know about this brand, is that they seem to have a formulation that really works for that. This is the Chromium Oxide Green. It's a little bluer in person. It's coming up a bit more olivey on camera, but very nice, very muted grey-green sort of pigment. A little bit of texture there. They say it's not granulating, but I think that would separate in a mix for sure. And then this earth green, which is famously a low tinting colour, supposedly granulating. I guess you can kind of see a bit of texture there, but it's a very low tinting colour to begin with, so kind of hard to tell. But that's a nice colour. If you like green earth and you're looking for a version which re-wets really nicely, then I think that would be a good option for you. Okay, thank you so much for making it through this video. Hopefully you'll keep your eyes out for the next edition, which will be going through all of these earth tones and specialty colours. Look at all those shimmery ones. Don't quite know how we're going to deal with that one yet, but I'll come up with something. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and leave a comment saying which of these was your favourite. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye everybody.